like you're buying into Putin's narrative if you're trying to paint all of Ukraine as Nazis, because that's basically his justification for war.
We only hear one side of the story. We only hear allegations
like
against.
There's Nazis in Canada. Can Putin invade Canada? Oh man, sorry. Don't want to give the Tankies any ideas. Yes, all caps. Yes, we will invade and take Canada. We will liberate you all from your Nazis. As a member of the Council of Bread, and I have been for some time, I'm not on the inner circle yet, but I hope to be. I can say unequivocally that this is a true and factual statement. BreadTube does in fact serve imperialism. And BreadTube, I mean, Caleb found out, and he was the first person to do so. And unfortunately, he did reveal a lot of BreadTube's secrets by making this book. And now we've come to a point where he is in the mainstream. He has taken his theories about how the CIA, George Soros, as well as CSIS in my case, have all combined forces to serve imperialist agendas by becoming social media YouTubers. Some of us are streamers. Some of us are Instagram models. It does not matter. It does not matter the medium. Every single one of us is on the payroll to serve imperialism. Now, I know Caleb's fans, who, if they're watching this right now, are probably DMing some of you in all caps, screaming about how I'm a soy cuck, R-slur, F-slur, something like that, because that's what Caleb Maupin's fans tend to do for as long as they can before they get blocked or banned in our chat. But either way, they're probably saying that Lance is intentionally being facetious in order to hide the truths that are revealed in this book. Now, we've exposed a lot of things on the show about Caleb Maupin, including Caleb Maupin's incredibly long and documented anti-Semitism, including Caleb Maupin's ties to Lyndon LaRouche, including Caleb Maupin's ties to Alexander Dugin. Like, it's the rap sheet with Caleb Maupin is so incredibly huge. The first people that started pointing out some of these yikesy things, I guess, who are considered part of BreadTube, are the people who were featured very prominently in that book. Some of them have never uttered a word about Caleb Maupin, by the way. He got so angry about his back and forth battle, both with Vosh and Thought Slime, that he had to write this book about it. And in the book, he doxes Thought Slime and talks a lot of horrible things about his mom, which is just really gross. Like, I thought when this book was coming out that it was going to be like the funniest thing ever, and when I started reading it and seeing the things that he was saying about Thought Slime, it was utterly disturbing. Not only did he dox Thought Slime, and also talk about his family, which has no relation to any criticism Thought Slime has ever levied at Caleb. Like, if you're going to talk about Thought Slime, go after Thought Slime. What are you doing talking about his mother? And why are you trying to like it was like poverty shaming, being like, she's a criminal, she's a blah blah blah, she's committed crime, blah blah blah, that's why Thought Slime is the way he is. And then goes on to some really yikesy transphobic shit as well, talking about how Thought Slime's non-binary and the fans of Thought Slime are mostly like people who have like mental illness and are trans themselves, blah blah blah, like all this other fucked up yikesy stuff, like really fucked up things. And so naturally, it was only a matter of time before Jimmy Dore was like, well, yeah, gotta get you on the show. Gotta put you on the show, Caleb Maupin. Caleb Maupin, who overlaps with a lot of the kind of gray zone types, has also never really found a home, like a permanent home in that world. It's always kind of been like, I think some people who know how to Google might Google Caleb and be like, oh shit. Oh yeah, he's kind of Lyndon LaRouche for the modern era. I think we should stay away from this one. But hey, I mean, Jimmy Dore has never really investigated or researched anything he's talked about, so here we are.
Favorite YouTubers and how they serve imperialism. And welcome, Caleb Maupin. Hi, Caleb. Thanks for coming on.
Sure, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Was he suntanning right before this started? Oh my god, was he wearing this? But then like he fell asleep and then like half of it went like that. So then he was just like this. Oh god, I'm supposed to go on the Jimmy Dore show and any moment now. I gotta get out there. Oh wow.
So I want to just talk about Ukraine with you for a little bit and what's happening with Russia and Joe Biden and then the gas situation, and then we'll talk about your book. So let me just show this. So this is what's called a gaffe when Joe Biden says the quiet part out loud. So here's what he said.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power. God bless you all, and may God...
I feel like I'm going to have to do so many qualifiers throughout this. I'm going to have to say, by the way, Jimmy, Caleb, because I know this is going to be levied against me. I'm not someone who supports NATO. I'm not someone who supports American imperialism. I guess it has to be said out loud. It's going to have to be mentioned multiple times. I criticize Biden for doing this. I don't think world leaders should make statements like that about other world leaders when there is a very close provocation to a potential war between two opposing nuclear superpowers. I mean, it's a very different thing if people say things like that in their everyday life versus the President of the United States says it out loud.
Defend our freedom, and may God protect our troops.
So there he is. This man cannot remain in power. So there he is. He's giving away the game, which is regime change in Russia. And that was a gaffe, right? And so here he is. He has to walk it back. So Secretary of State Antony Blinken, other officials walk back Biden's remarks on Putin ouster.
What was that? What?
The president said the Russian leader cannot remain in power, but the U.S. has clarified it's not pursuing.
I guess, do we not watch enough Jimmy Dore to know? Is there some lore here? Is that a running gag that I don't know about that really gets Jimmy Dore fans excited? Oh yeah, he said the thing. Oh, he's gonna say it. He's gonna do it. Antony Blinken.
Doing regime change in Moscow.
What the fuck was that? I don't know what it was. I don't know. Now he's doing the jerk off thing. Okay, maybe I'll just for science.
And so here he is. He has to walk it back. So Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
I don't get it. Antony Blinken. I think his humor is a little too, I would say, subversive for me. I simply can't wrap my head around, this degree of satire, and there's layers here.
Pursuing regime change in Moscow. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated.
See, he thought he was doing the jerk-off motion, but instead he was doing the milk the cow motion, not to be confused. Or perhaps the Dutch rudder. That is when multiple people lock arms, and then their collective motion helps jerk everyone off. So it's like it's a communism circle jerk, really. Everyone is helping each other jerk each other off. That could be what he's referring to.
The U.S. was not pursuing a strategy of regime change in Moscow. And here's Michael Tracy saying Biden called for regime change in Russia wasn't some off-the-cuff gaffe. It was declared as the climax of a carefully choreographed legacy-defining speech in a deliberately chosen venue, Poland, where the call would be well received. The message was delivered loud and clear.
That's where the conspiracy side
Biden
comes
tells
in.
U.S. troops they'll be in Ukraine. This is what want to hear what he said here.
So, by the way, that's where you switch from speculation to we're now going to start saying this is a matter of fact, and that's where it becomes a little bit dangerous because you have no proof of what you just said out loud, Michael Tracy, in that case. Like, you would have to provide evidence for a very large and impressively potentially dangerous statement like that, in which Biden intentionally did not fuck up, even though they've subsequently said Biden fucked up and he shouldn't have said that, but that's a cover-up. Remember, conspiracies. And instead, it was part of his actual delivery that he was supposed to do that, so everyone would be like, oh, all right. Yes, message received, Mr. President. We know what to do now.
Here he is.
And you're going to see when you're there. Some of you have been there. You're going to see. You're going to see.
You're going to see when you're there. You're going to see when you're in Ukraine.
How can you spend so much of your career talking about how Joe Biden is senile, that he's got this is Jimmy Dore's words, not mine, that he's got dementia, that he's not there or coherent, and then when he does do gaffes, all of a sudden be like, see, the secret message has been revealed. We get it.
That's what he's talking about. That's the president.
Like, he genuinely sounds like a tired old man, like someone who is very old and is dealing with probably like the biggest situation in his presidency so far.
United States, totally demented, trying to start World War III.
Women, young people stand in the middle in front of a damn tank, just saying, "I'm not leaving. I'm holding my ground." They're incredible.
Still, the idea that was an oopsie that should be disregarded. Oh no, trust me. hey, I'm still again, I have to do qualifiers. I am on the record as saying no. The president of the United States should not say things like that out loud. That's one thing for people to say in their private conversations with each other. Because yeah, the stakes aren't that high when you're at dinner with your friends or your family, and all of a sudden you're like, I think there should be regime change in another country, and everyone's like, ah ha ha, pass the gravy. But if the president says it, yes, it's very, very different. But that doesn't mean that the whole thing is part, again, this is why the clown shoes left is fucking, they will obfuscate things that are true and add conspiracy theories to it. And it pulls people away from anything that could actually oppose this. Like if you have a whole bunch of people who are very, very mad and want to see things change in America, and all of a sudden it's like, yes, you should be mad. And what you should be mad at is this little shiny thing that I'm going to dangle above you. And everyone is like, oh, whoa, yeah, okay, that sounds right. And they go towards that. Like, there's so much fucked up stuff the U.S. does that you do not need to add the conspiracy theory element, especially the unproven conspiracy theory element.
He is saying that U.S. troops will be in Ukraine soon. And here he is doubling down on that we have to have regime change.
Do you believe what you said? Thank you, sir. Do you believe what you said, that Putin can't remain in power? Or do you now
think Caleb's smiling this whole time
because your
waiting to be back
government
on
has been
camera?
trying to walk that back? Did your words complicate matters?
Well, you asked 3 different questions. I'll answer them all. Number one, I'm not walking anything back. The fact of the matter is I was expressing the moral outrage I felt toward the way Putin is dealing in the actions of this man. Just brutality of it. Half the children in Ukraine. I just come from being with those families. And so, but I want to make it clear, I wasn't then, nor am I now, articulating a policy change. I was expressing the moral outrage that I feel, and I make no apologies for it.
So now he's trying to pretend that I wasn't really speaking. I'm the president of the United States. And when I speak, people shouldn't take me seriously. That's what he's trying to say.
I think that's basically describing your entire career, Jimmy. How long do you go off about this? I want Caleb. Whoa! Caleb had to sit there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes before he was allowed to speak. 12 minutes, Jimmy! You're making me feel bad for Caleb Maupin. Okay, well, let's do the ramp up, I guess.
I conclude
nice, Glenn
that the
Greenwald.
United States intends to keep this war going. The UK officials similarly told him that
he's just
the
keeping him in
UK's
the corner
number one
there.
option is for the conflict to be extended and thereby bleed Putin. In sum, the Biden administration is...
And the way Jimmy Dore's show works is you never really know when he's about to throw you back on screen. So I kind of feel like he is just sitting there for 12 minutes staring at the screen like... waiting. That's right, Jimmy.
doing exactly that which former President Obama warned in 2016 should never be done, risking war between the world's 2 largest nuclear powers over Ukraine. Yet if any pathology defines the last 5 years of U.S. mainstream discourse, it is that any claim that undercuts the interests of the U.S. liberal elites, no matter how true that claim is dismissed as Russian disinformation, just like Hunter's laptop. Whatever else is true, the U.S. and Russia are now in waters uncharted since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Even the savage U.S.-USSR proxy wars of the 1980s in Latin America and Afghanistan did not entail these sorts of rapidly escalating threats. A Russian president who, validly or not, feels threatened by NATO expansion in the region and driven by questions of his legacy on the other side of the U.S. president with a long record of hawkishness and a war fever, which is now hobbled by the carelessness and
infirmities of old age. Glenn. Wow. So anyways, I am going to say one thing about this. Yeah, I'm extremely anti-war. I'm extremely anti-military and industrial complex. I'm opposed to NATO. All this shit. I have actually been at least a little bit relieved that the war hawkishness of both the press, yes, the press, they seem to be the ones constantly like, well, what about a crumb of nuclear war, sir? Can we just, please, sir, just a wee bit of nuclear war? Can we have this? Like them combined with like a whole bunch of different like liberal check marks and just liberal pundits in general being like, how can we stand back in these trying times and not send immediate troops, Americans, to fight on the behalf of Ukraine, even though this could provoke provoke an entire global conflict or escalate it to. Anyways, I'm glad that both NATO and the President of the United States, at least the administration of Biden so far, have been like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not enacting this no-fly zone. We're not going to do the no-fly zone. I know a lot of you are asking for it because I don't think you understand what it entails, but we're not going to do that. And then at the same time, it's like, well, yes, but we are in a situation in which the infirmities of his old age is a remarkably volatile combination because the war fever and the hawkishness is about to take place. Like, if you want to get into the conspiracy side of this and look at the fact that defense contractors are now raking in fuck tons of cash, their stocks are doing excellent, and there's a super fucked up thing that there is both an open stock market for arms manufacturers, which again, and politicians are allowed to have shares in those companies, the same politicians who will make like declarations of war in which people can go and die, and they can also profit. They can be literal war profiteers because they have shares in Boeing and Lockheed Martin and stuff. That is like, there's your conspiracy theory. You don't need to go as far as all this other shit, like, and push stuff that is just patently like, well, that's just like your opinion, man. You're just saying things that you're thinking. That doesn't make them true. Like, there are actual politicians who have shares and stocks in weapons manufacturers. So like the same weapons manufacturers who are producing weapons that are now flooding into Ukraine. So if you want to talk about that aspect, that is very different than saying like, you know, the president is on the verge of declaring world war, or it seems like we are seeing a rapid escalation the likes of which we've never seen before.
Infirmities
War makes
of
the line
old
go up.
age is a remarkably volatile combination.
Oh yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, forgot. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who made that whole like posturing, fucking the pearl clutching, where she's like, yeah, by the way, you know, the liberals and Democrats are literal war hawks and war profiteers. We'll look to profit in times of crisis or whatever. And someone else is like, you right before the war in Ukraine put like 20 grand into Lockheed Martin. You absolute wretched ghoul. I'm not getting all the facts right there, so I'm just gonna say on the record that that's not 100%. I can't remember the exact amount, but yeah, she did that.
As former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis put it on Saturday, a U.S. president who, during an atrocious war, does not...
I mispronounce Yanis Varoufakis. Yanis Varoufakis is his name, but I do it unintentionally, not intentionally. I don't see why you do it intentionally. He's quite a good speaker. He says a lot of things that I would assume you would be in tune with.
Mean what he says on matters of war and peace and must be corrected by his hyperventilating staff is a clear and present danger to everyone. Hovering above all these grave dangers is the question of why. What interest does the U.S. have in Ukraine? What are sufficiently vital or substantial to justify trifling with the risks of a frickin' nuclear war? Why did the U.S. not do more to try to diplomatically avert this horrific war, instead seemingly opting for the opposite, namely discouraging Ukrainian President Zelenskyy from pursuing such peace talks on the alleged grounds of futility and rewarding Russian aggression, and not even exploring whether a vow of non-NATO membership for Ukraine would suffice? Let me bring in Caleb. Caleb,
you've been sitting there for 12 minutes.
Why did the U.S. not try more to de-escalate this situation? What do you say?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it is the strategy of the United States to isolate.
He's putting on his RT voice. He's not doing the Caleb Maupin live stream voice. There's two Caleb Maupins, right? When he does RT, he always talks like this. It seems like in the United States, that's just like his broadcaster voice. They're very distinct, the two. All right.
Russia. And this war and provoking it and doing everything they can to kind of force this situation has been what has led to their ability to do so. And we're seeing that. They've been able to more effectively isolate Russia as a result of this. The people of Donetsk and Lugansk waited for 8 years. They wanted Russia to recognize their independence. And Russia said no. They said fulfill the Minsk Accords. And they facilitated the Minsk Agreement. And they tried to get recognition by the U.S.-backed Ukrainian government. For 7 years, they waited for the Minsk Accords to be fulfilled, and they weren't.
I don't know what's going on. I think there's a light shining very directly into the left side of his face.
And let me just explain to people what the Minsk Accords are.
He looks burnt.
Sure. Well, after 2014, when the USA toppled the elected government of Yanukovych in Kiev, and they installed a fanatically anti-Russian government, The people in the eastern regions of Ukraine, in Donbass, they declared independence. They set up the Donetsk People's Republic, the People's Republic of Lugansk, and they wanted separation. And they asked Russia to recognize them. And at that point, there was negotiations. They called the Minsk Accords, in which the government in Kiev agreed to start bringing the people of the eastern regions back into politics, recognize their right to speak the Russian language, just bring them back in. And Russia sat back and said, no, we don't want to recognize you as independent countries. We want to bring you back into Ukraine. Let Ukraine bring you back in, as they promised to do in the agreements. But it's been 7 years, and those agreements haven't been fulfilled, and people have been dying around the clock. And it's very clear that Russia waited and waited and waited and waited, and the threats and the escalation and the...
Is this the same narrative that Jimmy Dore has been pushing? I haven't been watching a lot of Jimmy Dore's takes on Russia and Ukraine and the history of both countries, but I assume they haven't been like pushing this narrative yet. Maybe they have. I'm not entirely sure there.
Filing of U.S. weapons into Kiev continued, and the attacks and shelling and bombing and drone strikes against the people in the eastern regions continued, and now we're in the situation that we're in.
And what do you make of Zelenskyy? So a lot of people have said that what the United States and NATO is doing is they're sacrificing the people of Ukraine to get slaughtered. And why would Zelenskyy go along with that? The president of Ukraine. Why would he go along with that?
Oh, this should
because the U.S. and NATO, they don't really give a shit about Ukrainian people. They care about, you know, energy transfers and economic interests and things like that. They don't really care about people at all. So why would Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, go along with the United States?
Well, on the first point that you made there, I just have to agree with you. There's all this moralizing about Ukraine right now. The hearts of all the world were supposed to care about the people of Ukraine. If you care about the people of Ukraine, you wouldn't be plotting to turn their homeland into a long-term battlefield against Russia, right? If you care about the people of Ukraine, you would be trying to end this conflict as quickly as possible, which is not what Joe Biden is doing as he pours gasoline on it with threats to topple the Russian president, etc.
Wow. Like, okay, first off, how does anything that Caleb is talking about yet justify the actions of Vladimir Putin? Like, any of it? Like, you know, that would be part one. Part two, I can't believe the road he's going down. Okay, so I have to differentiate between whether he's talking about Zelenskyy, and that would be pretty fucking utterly absurd if he's trying to suggest that Zelenskyy wanted to turn Ukraine into a battlefield in order to, like, what, effectively get a whole bunch of money, weapons, funding, NATO support, or if he's trying to suggest now that this is something that Joe Biden himself is personally trying to do.
But if you get down to it, Zelenskyy was elected as a peace candidate. He was elected because most Ukrainians want to de-escalate this.
We got trolls in the unbanned requests, and they're saying exactly what you said they would. All in capitals, I'm sure, right? You R slurs and F slurs, every single one of you cannot hold a single book to Caleb Maupin. He is Lord, he is Savior. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised, by the way, because it's usually the same one or two people, why they don't have, like, another account. And they have no idea how to be subtle. Like, they can't pop into a chat and actually troll anyone. They pop into a chat, and then it's always like, okay, time to do some praxis. Caps lock, and here we go. All of you F slurs are gay, and you are lib cucks, and you will be destroyed. You are R slurs, blah, blah, blah.
And he was elected as a repudiation of
you little I'm not even gonna read it.
of the more extreme
it's exactly
right-wing anti-Russian forces in the country. But he wasn't able to fulfill the platform he got elected on, because at the end of the day, he doesn't really have the power. There are these extremist groups that the U.S. media denies.
I don't understand why Caleb Maupin, of all people, maybe it's because there's an overlap between all their fan bases. Like, I could see, like, a Haas, for example, a Haas fan being, like, screaming in all caps, because that kind of seems like, you know, you're following or emulating the person you have a parasocial relationship with. Like, he likes to turn up his decibels. I like to hit caps lock before I type and use a whole bunch of slurs, right? But Caleb Maupin, like, of all the criticisms I can make of Caleb Maupin, he is certainly not consistently irate. You know, he's very pompous. Let's just say that. It's very like, all right, I know more than everyone ever, and I'm not an anti-Semite. Okay, like I don't see why someone who's a massive Caleb Maupin fan would then be like, I must defend him, all caps.
Battalion, the right sector, etc. And there's just a lot of straight up management of Ukraine by the NATO countries, by foreign policy NGOs that have set up in Kiev. He doesn't have the power. He's a puppet. People say that this is a war against an independent country. Ukraine's independence ended in 2014 when the USA toppled the elected government. And since then, basically, Ukraine has just been.
So I believe he's talking about the Euromaidan there. If you've read about it or watched documentaries on it, you can see how, and yes, far-right nationalist militias did play a large role in it, in the toppling of the government that took place in there. The idea that this was 100% the actions of the United States is just absurd. Absolutely absurd. You're watching far-right nationalist militias combined with a very large amount of people who were deeply, deeply upset during the early days of the protest because students were targeted. Once the students were targeted, then more and more people started joining those protests and they started to grow and escalate. And by the way, they had a democratic election after the fact, afterwards, which was overseen by numerous international bodies that found it to be a fair democratic election in which Zelenskyy won. So like, again, I don't understand this idea that Ukraine exists to be exclusively a US vassal state or something like that. And just saying that and then going along with it, like, it's almost as if he's taken American exceptionalism and American imperialism to strange new places in that other people have no agency worldwide, including Putin. Putin has no control. His hands are tied. He can't do anything. It's the encroachment of NATO exclusively that is forcing his hand, and also the U.S. controls and George Soros control Ukraine. So because of that, combined forces, like, you're talking like an American exceptionalist in which the U.S. dictates all things, even proxy wars. America also controls their opponents and their detractors and independent nations simultaneously. Just everything and everywhere.
A NATO military base pointed at Russia and doing everything it can to provoke some kind of Russian response to its actions. And now that response is happening, and they're acting like this came from nowhere.
So let me ask you this question. What interest does the United States have in Ukraine that are sufficiently vital or substantial to justifying trifling with the risks of this magnitude?
Well, there's no interest for us. I mean, average Americans aren't gaining from this in any conceivable
Lance, you recognize the Venezuelan and believe in recent coup d'etat attempts? Yes, I do.
way. But there are big oil companies and big natural gas companies who see.
In the case of Venezuela specifically, I would have to have, I would say, more direct evidence that was planned at like the highest levels of government for the two people who obviously got caught in the process, you know. But like, it's one of those things where how far do you take your conspiracy theory versus fact? Because there's no doubt, like, again, you're watching a show that fully recognizes U.S. imperialism, that understands the United States is the imperial force that is mostly dominating the world. They have the most military bases to the tune of about 800 globally. They are the hegemonic superpower. There's no question about that. But I think if you've gone so far as like the Gray Zone or Jimmy Dore Caleb have, where like they've pushed it to the point where they actually don't think that there are other geopolitical forces in the world that have their own ambitions and powers. They can only see the world through the lens of America bad. TM. That's it, right? If that is your only focus and your only worldview, it makes you very, very difficult. Well, it makes it complicated and difficult for you to try and analyze recent events like the aggression of Vladimir Putin and Russia in this instance. And so to wrap your pretzel around this whole thing, you've got to start inventing these other, narratives. So the one that they're going with is that NATO has Ukraine has no autonomy. They are simply in control by the United States and by NGOs. Part of that control has led them to putting in a puppet government known as Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is just a puppet for the US to control so they can funnel it with weapons and eventually start and escalate to World War III. And so saith, like, that's just the way, you know? That's the best read I can get on this.
To gift more subs.
It also means that you give bad analysis if you think America is this all-powerful force that is responsible for everything that happens. America is an all-powerful force that does do a lot of fucked up shit around the world. That doesn't mean all of a sudden that Vladimir Putin and Russia do not have autonomy and are not also doing very fucked up shit right now, you know? Like, America is the most powerful force on the world stage, no question. That doesn't suddenly, like... Just America bad can't be the only lens through which you see the world. It's very myopic, and it's oddly, it reeks of American exceptionalism. If that's like your only view, that America controls everything that happens around the planet.
Russia as a competitor.
Multiple things can be bad at
when
once.
Russia was poor and starving in the 90s and falling apart, Bill Clinton loved Boris Yeltsin. Everything was great. But when Putin got in and he rebuilt their economy, restructuring it around government-controlled oil and gas, at that point, Russia was selling oil on the international markets, selling natural gas on the international markets in competition with ExxonMobil and BP and Shell and Chevron. And ever since then, there's been tension. They see Russia as a competitor on the international stage. They don't like that. They want the world to remain centered around Wall Street and London. They want...
What the fuck are you talking about? Rex Tillerson met with Putin. They're enormously good friends. Like, what are you saying out loud right now? Holy shit.
Those oil profits. They want those natural gas profits. And they don't like the fact that Russia is in on the business.
And so when Glenn Greenwald asked the question, how does growing U.S. involvement in the war benefit the people of the United States, particularly as they were already before this war weighed down by the dual burdens of pandemic-based economic deprivations and rapidly escalating inflation, so that the answer to that is, how does this growing U.S. involvement in this war benefit the people? You would say it doesn't benefit us at all.
No. This is like Walmart. You know, when Walmart comes to a town,
and see, that's the shitty thing is, I agree. I don't think the U.S. should be involved in wars. In this war specifically. And like, I've got people in the same aisle as me who are also spouting all of this gibberish. Like, that's why Jimmy Dore and Caleb Maupin suck so much.
Its prices, it puts all the local stores out of business. The people who work at all the local stores lose their jobs. They wipe out their competitors. And then once their competition is wiped out, then the prices go back up, right? And this is how monopolism works. This is monopolistic.
He received one of the highest honors one can. Yeah, Rex Tillerson received one of the highest honors that you can from Russia. Like, on that, Caleb Maupin is so far gone if he thinks there's some, like, oh, well, all these major oil producers just see Russia as competition, so they want to edge Russia out, and that this was all part of the project. This was basically big corporate powers who wanted to start this so that Russia would be removed from the world stage in terms of oil. Okay, so how do you justify or wrangle your head around the fact that the U.S. is now toying with the idea of buying Venezuelan oil? Because for me, that makes perfect sense. It's kind of like what was once the axis of evil is now the axis of convenience, right? That's why they would make that decision to do that. But is that also part of the conspiracy? Is it that, well, okay, they hadn't thought that one through, and then that could be a win for Venezuela, I guess, or maybe it will make Venezuela more beholden to the American empire, which would be bad. So maybe we should continue to sanction Venezuela and starve the people of that country. But I also no, wait, what?
Capitalism. They don't like that Russia is a competitor. They don't like that China has risen up from poverty. They don't want competition. That's really...
Lance, I just had to serve Lauren Southern at the dispensary where I work. Lauren Southern smokes weed and at the same time is so horrifying to minorities and trans people. What? How? I don't get how white supremacists can be stoners. How do you get stoned and then right afterwards go like, yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're taking all the jobs of white power, blah, blah, blah. Like, what? That does, wow. Wow. That, I just noticed the boss face. Thank you. Thank you. Good eye. This is a good one. That's a golden Burger King right there. I'll save it for later. I don't know what use it serves yet.
All this,
I mean, it does have to serve imperialism, so I'll have to use it for imperialism.
It's down to Russia is now a competitor, just like China is a competitor, just like other.
It was so awkward. Oh man, I couldn't imagine. I don't know how you would even flame her, to be honest. I mean, you're just doing your job, obviously, but that would be utterly bizarre. I'll be like, oh, hi, white supremacist Lawrence Southern. What strains are you looking for? Do you prefer indica or sativa? Are you looking for more of a body high as you spread white nationalist talking points and talk about the great genocide and replacement theory and all that kind of stuff? Or would you like a sativa? Would you like to be more cerebral in how stoned you are? When, again, you spread the great replacement conspiracy theory. I was actually flabbergasted. Yeah, I can imagine. Wasn't Marc Emery the Prince of Pod, a PPC candidate? Yeah, Marc Emery has been accused of, I think he's been accused of sexual assault of a minor. I don't want to put that one out there without being 100% on that yet, but he has some very yikesy accusations on him, and he's also known as the Prince of Pot in Vancouver. He's a massive, massive creep.
Countries around the world are competitors, and they don't want that competition. They want to dominate the world.
I would say that her ID was fake and she needs to leave. This is a private business. Please fuck off. Yes, I'm sorry, but I'm a bigot. I don't serve. I'm a bigot towards, and I'm bigoted towards white supremacists, and I do not serve them in my place of work. So, Marc Emery, just want to make sure. Yeah, he was accused of grooming. I was not pedo jacking. I don't do that lightly. Marc Emery, the prominent marijuana advocate, often described as a Prince of Pod, is facing allegations of inappropriate sexual behavior. Someone posted word published to Facebook. I know we're totally derailing right now. He has denied it. A 17-year-old accused him. I went into his office in the back. We were joking and chatting, and then he made me sit on his lap and smoke a bong out of the 6-foot phallic bong between his legs. I was a teenager. I was very naive, and that it was inappropriate. I was put off and creeped out. I just thought that's the way men acted. Yep.
Market, and they want to drive down living standards in order to do so. And this pandemic has presented them with a great opportunity. I mean, this is the monopolistic forces of.
Whoa. Emery tried to ask me out on Instagram 6 or 7 years ago while he was dating my friend. Can confirm he is creepy. Wow. Huh. We have people in chat who have actually been directly affected by Marc Emery. God damn.
Based in the Western countries, kind of dictating policy.
Okay, sorry. If you're utterly confused, that was all separate from the Caleb Maupin stuff. None of that has anything to do with Caleb Maupin or Jimmy Dore. They are not related. Marc Emery is known as the Prince of Pot in Vancouver. He was actually, as an activist, instrumental in trying to push for medicinal marijuana rights in Canada and stuff like that, while at the same time, he was simultaneously a massive, massive creep. And former employees and people who worked with him have come out subsequently and been like, yeah, he's a huge creep, and these are some of the very fucked up and creepy things that he's done. That's completely separate. I don't want to inappropriately tarnish either Jimmy Dore or Caleb with any of that. That has nothing to do with it. That was a complete Stunlock tangent that we went on for 2 seconds. They are not related and not intertwined. They're not combined.
And trying to drive the world into greater poverty in order to secure their profits.
So do you think we'll ever ask those questions? Do you think, as Glenn Greenwald says, it's too late to ask those?
I'm getting the lamest DMs from Maupin lovers, lame attempts at trolling. Are they listening to my advice? Were they like, whoa, Lance is right. When I try to do praxis, by which I mean sell Caleb Maupin's books for him by hitting the caps lock and calling everyone the F-slur, it seems people don't listen to my messaging. So maybe I should change things up, and maybe I'll change my strategy. He may have a point. I hate that Lance guy. He's an F-slur, R-slur, but, you know, at the same time, he does have those strategies.
It might be too late to have those questions meaningfully examined, like why are we there? What are our interests? What are we willing to, our involvement levels? Do you think we'll ever have that kind of discussion in the United States?
Well, mainstream media isn't going to have those conversations, right. And everything we've seen from mainstream media lately has been nothing but the most blatant.
Wow, well, yeah, it kind of seems like the mainstream media serves imperialism. Because I would agree with you 100% there, Caleb. You know, but how like I'm surprised Jimmy Dore hasn't said manufacturing consent like 17 times already in the middle of this. Are these? Is this like the lightning rod that you were looking for? Is this like a huge revelation? It's like, yeah, well, it seems that no one in the mainstream media wants to talk about U.S. imperialism, the military-industrial complex, how we have to end and reduce both of those immediately, the climate change in any serious capacity outside of climate change bad. Maybe we should do ban plastic straws kind of shit. Yeah, amazing. Like, thank you. The revelations are astounding coming out of here. One of them jumped to my DMs and called the Serfs TV, and I quote, "the dumbest clown on the planet." Hey, this is the dumbest clown on the planet saying these two clowns are clowns, as approved by the dumbest clown on the planet. I am the one who can approve all clowns of their clownery, and I will say these two are authentic clown shoes, both of them. Yes, they have the clown seal of approval. They are part of the circus. I would know.
And support for U.S. foreign policy. I mean, this
Then they said they wanted to fuck my mom. Lance is the dumbest clown on the planet, and I want to have sex with your mother very badly. Is she available? What's she up to right now? She won't respond to my DMs or dick pics. I don't understand. I tried to come in maybe a little too hard. Shouldn't have done all caps locks, but still, please let Margaret know. I'm sorry. I apologize. I love her. I really do. I know this is not a good look. I know you won't believe me, but I sincerely do actually care for her.
I mean, it's a lot like when the USA went.
The message was all in caps. I told you. Well, you can't do praxis until you hit the caps lock. That is just fact. We have to separate fact from fiction here. You can't do praxis without the caps lock. Not how that works. Have you read Das Kapital, Volume 2?
Even then, there was at least some criticism you heard. But this is really, really blatant. But at the same time, beneath the surface, there are a lot of Americans that are...
Okay, I gotta say, to the detractors, you are being so hilarious right now that you are distracting everybody from Caleb Maupin's very, very salient points. And shame on you. Caleb would not approve of that. Caleb wants his messaging to be heard by as many people as possible, which is why he's made all of his videos from the CPI conference publicly available. So, please, like, stop distracting everyone from Caleb.
More upset about the rising price of gas, more upset about the rising price of food, wondering why the roads are crumbling, wondering why the power grid in Texas collapsed last winter during an exceptionally cold winter. And at that point, there's a lot of Americans saying, why aren't we worried about the problems in our own backyard and what's going on here in the United States than what's going on the other side of the world? As much as
in terms of mainstream media, yeah, I agree. I agree with that statement. These are the things that should be covered, but they are not talked about. Climate change is never talked about by the mainstream media in any serious capacity. It's just not. It's always, hey, cap and trade, plastic straws, we got this. We're going to solve the world together. You know, like, let's all connect hands kind of stuff. They never talk about U.S. imperialism in an actual, maybe the closest you'll get is like Mehdi-Hassan. That's about as close as I can think of. But even then, he only gets so far before it's like, okay, and now I'm not really allowed to talk about the next part, you know, stuff like that. Never talk about nationalizing the oil industry. Never talk about nationalizing the military-industrial complex. And yeah, I know that sounds weird, but nationalizing the military-industrial complex would be a necessary thing to rein in its power and control. Like right now, all these private corporations that are the arms manufacturers, they are beholden to their CEOs and their shareholders in essence, but not actually outside of like, you know, they don't want their stock value to go down and whoever has a vote in the board of directors kind of shit. But like, yeah, that's a very dangerous thing to have the world's largest weapons manufacturers be private corporations. That's a horrifying thing. And also, I don't hear Jimmy Dore and Caleb Maupin talk about that or bring that up, because that is a very important topic and discussion to have. And when they always talk about U.S. imperialism, U.S. imperialism, U.S. imperialism, this is why it's bad. Look at Syria. Bashar al-Assad is our Lord and Savior. All this kind of stuff. Like, your analysis never goes beyond that. The same critiques that you're making about all this mainstream media. Like, why don't you talk about, okay, hey, I have an organization. Look, I can fill a room of 100 people. Granted, we have a few security guards and employees and stuff who are also working there at the time, and maybe, okay, anyways, I can fill a room of 100 people if I get, again, the largest names in tankery to get, okay, but I can fill a room of 100 people. You could get then those 100 people to start doing things. Can you get them to start talking about direct action? Get them to start spreading the word about how can we talk about seriously nationalizing military industrial complex defense manufacturers? Can we talk about getting people to run in local elections who are going to directly oppose things like U.S. imperialism? Or is it about the books? Is it about the book sales ultimately? And they never talk about workers. Like the last time I heard Jimmy Dore talk about workers, he was shitting on unions in Canada because they weren't supporting the truckers, the fucking truckers. The white nationalist founded and funded trucker rally in Canada, and they were all so excited because they're like, I've never seen this before. Look at them. The truckers are actually, they're shutting down the bridge. They're shutting down Capital. We're doing it. And I was like, what what do you think this is? Like, are you jokerfied? Is your idea of the revolution a whole bunch of, again, white nationalist funded truckers who are trying to shut down the border for a benign thing known as freedom? Sorry, I should say the term nebulous. A nebulous term, freedom. Like their demands. We demand freedom. Let's shut down the auto manufacturers. Let's put thousands of people out of jobs for a day to do that. This is how we destroy capital, comrades. Like, do you think destroying capitalism is destroying capital? Like they are one and the same? Is it like that was the last time Jimmy Dore was talking about this shit?
They want to pluck our heartstrings.
Like if you're going to, and I just want to be on the record of saying this, if you're going to do a protest, if you're going to march on the streets, if you're going to try and shut down a factory, it should be in the interest of the workers in order to get them better rights, in order to get them ownership of a company, something of that nature, not just freedom, blah, blah, you know, like the fucking, is this all a game to you? It's just like, oh yeah, fucking based in poggies. Like if a factory explodes, are you excited about that? It's like, oh yeah, fuck, we got him. Capitalism just took another hit. Fucking 100 people just died in the fucking Walmart warehouse. Capitalism, another victory against capitalism, comrade. Like, what are you talking about?
Look, Jimmy, when it gets down to it, most people are good, okay? If you hear about someone being harmed on the other side of the planet, you hear about a child starving or a family fleeing as refugees, you want to help them. And that's good. Most people care about other people. Most people have empathy and kindness. But the sad thing is that the most evil people, I mean, these war hawks, Samantha Power and other forces, Victoria Nuland, have figured out how to use media to manipulate these really good, compassionate, altruistic sentiments on the part of people.
You still can't take off the caps lock. Libtard Larpine is an anarchist. You're scum. Fuck the earth. I've never once said I was an anarchist. But cool. Yeah, I'll go with that. You are fucking scum. Fuck the earth and an oxygen waster parasite. You're so dumb and arsler. Caleb would nuke you into oblivion. He probably would. You're probably right there. I'm sure if Caleb had access to nukes, he would nuke all of BreadTube.
To build a case for war. And what always happens are the Libyans.
Why are you proving me right? Like I did a bit about you, and you're doing the exact thing I did as a comedy routine, like in real time in 4K. You're just like any person in chat that you can DM about this to get some praxis for Caleb Maupin. That's so sad. Of all people, I could understand like having a parasocial relationship with someone like Haas. Like he could be a captivating speaker as long as he turns up his decibels a little bit. But Caleb Maupin. Okay, I have received another super chat. Thank you very much. Do you sell his books? I bet you sell his books. I bet you've done some praxis by setting up a bookstore somewhere for Caleb Maupin. Hey, look, everyone, it's Marxist literature. Caleb, I made you $400 a day. Can I have it? No. This is about the revolution. I'm gonna need all that $400. Thank you very much. Okay, good job. Yeah, we were doing it. Yes, closer to communism again.
Any better off, right? You know, they cared so much about those Libyans. They had to get rid of Gaddafi. Look at Libya now. What about the Iraqis? You know, what about the people of Syria as they've been funding extremists there? The people never benefit.
Having your fans behave like that is more of a denunciation than all the debunking. It's true. Hey, I'm just going to say to our editor and the worker cooperative that we have, leave in the Caleb Maupin stuff with Caleb Maupin fans trolling, because yeah, I think that does more. I agree. It really speaks to the kind of fan base that you're cultivating through your words and actions. I mean, who knew that having a long and very well-documented career of anti-Semitism would end up having people who are just very, very angry and use all kinds of slurs when they yell at you, you know? I mean, Caleb Maupin fans and people in the alt-right are the people who have called me the F-slur and the R-slur on a repeated basis.
From this, but they're very good at getting the emotions going and manipulating our basic human solidarity. It's really, really sinister. These must be very, very cynical people at the end of the day.
So let me ask you this. So so even France's president, Emmanuel Macron, he warned on Sunday against a verbal escalation over Russia's invasion in Ukraine after Joe Biden branded Vladimir Putin a butcher who cannot remain in power. And I would not use that kind of language, he said. If a ceasefire is to be brokered, we must not escalate, neither through words nor actions. And now Zelenskyy says Ukrainian President Zelenskyy said on Sunday that a Russian demand of Ukrainian neutrality, a key issue for Moscow at conflict negotiations, was
Caleb doesn't
being
have to wait too long
closely
this
looked
time.
at by Kiev's negotiators. The point of the negotiation is understandable to me, and it is being discussed. It is being carefully studied, said Zelenskyy. Now, first of all,
I just got one of the DMs. Lance, not funny, unlike real clowns. I'm sorry, I don't entertain you. But I mean, I'm probably not going to be what you're looking for if you find clowns to be the peak of comedy. You're like, Lance isn't a really good comedian. When I want a good comedian, I go to the circus. I mean, you must not be entertained that often. There's not a lot of clowns in everyday life. Like, I mean, literal clowns, people who dress up in clown makeup and do the whole thing. Like, how often is the circus in town? Is it like, oh good, Cirque du Soleil is coming. I can laugh again. Finally, I can laugh again.
why is he studying? What is there to study?
Oh,
and
wow.
why isn't he just going forward with it?
Well, look, I think that at the end of the day, Zelenskyy is trying to do a balancing
I'm sorry, I'm
act
not your
because
target
while he doesn't
demographic.
have the power, there's a lot of these NATO allies that aren't fully where Joe Biden's at. Joe Biden is trying to escalate this. You can interpret this as just an old man and gaffes, but if that's the case,
Yeah,
he
definitely.
needs to
Hey, everyone, if you hear in the news that I've been run over by a clown car, please, you know where to look, okay? In Roblox, but you know where to look.
resign because he doesn't. This is a serious situation, and if you don't know how to clearly articulate policy, you shouldn't be in office. I mean, I think honestly that what's going on here, they're hiding behind Joe Biden's Sleepy Joe old man reputation, and they're trying to make threats that they can then walk back and not be held accountable for. I think that
100% speculation, all speculation. Just so everyone is aware, okay? But like none of this, there's no citations. This is not based on anything credible. They're saying, and this is a conspiracy theory, that Joe Biden is trying to hide in his gaffes the fact that he is trying to provoke and start a world war escalation crisis. A direct conflict with Russia.
that's what's going on here. Because if this is just a straight up incompetence, I mean, it's something pretty unbelievable. But at the end of the day, Zelenskyy, the NATO countries are guiding him, but not all the NATO countries are fully on board with this.
There's
Germany
someone
was
hovering in the
very
background.
reluctant. They just built that Nord Stream
send it to me,
2 natural gas pipeline. They were ready to start buying natural gas from Russia, and now we have this crisis, and all of a sudden they can't do it. And France has got questions as well. And I think a lot of the countries specifically on the European mainland are asking themselves, why are we escalating with Russia at this point? What do we benefit from it? And a lot of people have just got to be asking, okay, it's one thing, you don't approve of Russia.
Like, it would be completely different to have a discussion about what interests does it serve for there to be an alliance in Europe that directly basically uses and has America as the figurehead, right? In the case of NATO, if Caleb wanted to have or talk about a discussion where it's like, hey, perhaps NATO shouldn't include the United States, or perhaps countries like Canada shouldn't be in NATO, or things like that, or Europe should form its own defensive alliance to be able to protect against, say, things like Russian aggression. Like, those are all very different conversations than the President of the United States is hiding his direct declarations of war with a sovereign nation through his senility. Do you see the difference? The difference between those two things? Did you understand why one of them would be a rational discussion to have as a leftist, perhaps, and the other one is conspiracy theory nonsense? That's the problem with all of this. That's where it derails into that stuff. Oh God, still. I have friends in real life, unlike your cuck online sims, you lying dipshit. Also, I'm not an Americunt. We are in lockdown and not dying like roaches, like you Yankee dipshits. So you're a lonely, drunk turd who steals useful oxygen every day. When you die, nobody will miss you. Oh, I've never been more defeated. How could you say such things? And in all caps,
but
too.
Why should we import natural gas all the way from the United States, all the way from the other side of the planet? When we can get it over the
should I be screaming in British then? Should I be like, you?
border from Russia? We built this special pipeline to Germany. What is going on here? And they have to ask themselves, is going along with Washington's latest moralistic crusade, is this
Jamie
really
Smash 27 says, okay, I've been forced to go run an errand, but I'm glad I came in here today. I've had a bad day and you were all a lot of fun. I needed this more than anyone here knew. Thanks everyone. You know what? That genuinely does warm my heart, because that is what I would like to do. I would like to, first and foremost, obviously, educate, but more than anything, if you could walk away from a surf stream feeling slightly better about the day or yourself, that is a very beautiful thing. I feel like I have utility in that case, so I'm happy to hear that.
interests?
Caleb, why does Germany go so? Well, you know what? Let's talk about it in the next segment, because our next segment is about the gas deal. And I want to talk about the Nord Stream pipeline.
Did he call me an American? Yeah, but I mean, that one's kind of a compliment because that means my impeccable American accent has worked. And none of you know that I'm truly a Canadian. And then if they're like, well, Canada's not even a real country, I'll be like, I agree. Yes, Uno reverse card there. I live in a cartoon land.
When it comes to that. But let me just ask you to close out this segment, how do you think it's going to end up? I mean, everybody knows how this has to end up, meaning that Ukraine has to go back to being a neutral actor, right? And they have to stop shelling the people in the Donbass, meaning Ukraine government has to stop killing those people. And so how do you think it's going to end up?
Well, my hope is that the government in Kiev will recognize that the people of the eastern regions who wanted to be part of Ukraine, that basically if they're not going to have that, then they have the right to independence, and recognize that, look, if we're not going to treat you with respect, we're going to keep attacking you and not let you be part of Ukrainian society, I guess you can be independent. And if the Donbass regions, Donetsk and Lugansk, their independence is recognized, and Ukraine is going to agree to not join NATO and not keep piling U.S. weapons in there, I think this could end. Unfortunately, it seems like the strategy of the United States is, as you read in the Glenn Greenwald article, they're trying to set up for a long-term conflict. They want this to be the new Afghanistan. They want Russians to be in Ukraine, fighting and dying for year after.
We are glad you are here and the stream helped.
Oh, thanks, Kubi, for gifting a tier 2 subscription to Jamie Smash 27. It's very nice of you. Yeah, back to what Caleb's talking about. I think you can't have both conspiracy theories take place simultaneously. You cannot be saying that Biden's words are dangerous, of which I agree with you. Biden's words are dangerous. The U.S. president should not be calling for regime change to a country that it's not in direct war or conflict with right now. But Biden's words are dangerous. He is trying to escalate this to begin a direct conflict with Russia, which again would pull the world into a world war, simultaneously while them saying that they want to carve out a proxy war situation that will last for an incredibly long time because it will be very, very profitable to certain industries.
Year after year. But I think Moscow knows this as well, and they're not going to go along with that, and et cetera. So my hope is that that forces in Europe, forces in Kiev that don't want this conflict to continue will say, look, Lugansk, Donetsk, we'll leave them alone, and at that point, this can all be de-escalated. Unfortunately, that is not the goal of the United States. And the scary thing is that the training of these extremist forces, not the Ukrainian military, but these Azov battalion, right fanatics, these folks. I mean, look at some of the photos. I know you can't show them on here of what they're doing in the areas that they take over, where they're torturing people, they're targeting people on the basis of their ethnicity, Roma people, others. I mean, what they're doing is just horrendous. U.S. media is just covering up real atrocities, executing prisoners of war, just executing prisoners of war.
The Azov Battalion are fucking Nazis. They're Nazis. I think any leftist worth their salt can tell you that. Any leftist worth their salt will tell you they hate the Azov Battalion. Yeah, just like straight up. How does that justify what Putin is doing in Ukraine? Like, if you look at the democratic elections of Ukraine, the vast majority of them did not vote for the fascist party or the fascist parties. So the vast majority of Ukrainians are not in favor of, neo-Nazi groups, far-right fascism, stuff like that. You're buying into Putin's narrative if you're trying to paint all of Ukraine as Nazis, because that's basically his justification for war.
We only hear one side of the story. We only hear allegations against.
There's Nazis in Canada. Can Putin invade Canada? Oh man, sorry. Don't want to give the Tankies any ideas. Yes, all caps. Yes, we will invade and take Canada. We will liberate you all from your Nazis.
Russia, but the documented facts of what these extreme forces that have gotten CIA and U.S. National Guard training over the past few years.
Talking about decommunization, because there wouldn't be a Ukraine if it weren't for communism. Lenin.
Oh, when you said hovering, I thought you meant literally hovering. It's just someone vacuuming. I think he's probably at the office, right? He's probably at the RT office when he was recording this.
Are doing is really, really horrendous. And I don't know if Zelenskyy will be able to completely control those forces. And that may be what the forces that want a long-term conflict are depending on. It may be.
Yeah. Hoovering. No, I see that now there's someone hoovering in the back. But when you're like, there's someone hovering, I was like, wait, what? And I didn't think it was literally going to be like, the laws of physics were suspended for a little while Caleb Maupin was speaking and someone was actually capable of levitation. But I thought there would be something funny that was happening, like in a mirror or something. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. I wanted hovering and I got hoovering.
Zelenskyy and other forces are ready to end this, but these extremist elements that they have cultivated don't.
You think Zelensky's afraid that Nazis will kill him if he makes a deal?
Oh, sure. I mean, ever since he got elected, they've been having protests against him. They've been having torch-lit marches that look a lot like, Charlottesville, where they're marching and calling for a new Euromaidan. They consider him to be a traitor. They say that he's not really Ukrainian because he's Jewish, etc. Those far-right forces have been threatening him and calling for his ouster from the beginning. And they have a lot of influence in the military, and the United States has been giving them a lot of support.
Oh, that's the end.
Hey, we're doing our live stand-up.
Oh, he didn't talk at all about the book. It was just a promotion of his book. You got this. We got the Jimmy Dore holding up BreadTube serves imperialism. But that was it? Oh. They only talked about substance. I wanted trash too. I wanted some substance, obviously. I wanted to hear the conspiracy theories about Biden and how he's actually trying to provoke World War III and a proxy war simultaneously. Not really easy to do both things at the same time, but either way, that's what he's doing. And they're trying to cover up the fact that these gaffes, so to speak, are actually really intended statements in order to, again, provoke some kind of, like, that's all there. So we have that on the record. But there was no discussions of BreadTube serving imperialism. I wanted to hear a little bit more. Like, remember when Max Blumenthal went on Jimmy Dore to talk about that? Yeah. If he goes to Vancouver for a tour, can we get a dono to get you a ticket so you can stand up and out and meme him at the show? Oh, if he comes to Vancouver, you wouldn't need to fundraise. I could just go to his show. If he came to Vancouver, I would definitely come. If there was a CPI event here and Caleb Maupin was speaking, I 100% would attend that. Yes, I would attend it. I would take the pledge, as you have to do. I think it would be a blast. Yeah. Well, actually, it would probably be really boring. But imagine, like, that list of speakers. See, like, the only problem was, like, Haas wasn't debate Haas or stream Haas. He was kind of like Qbot to whole theory Haas, where he's, like, a lot more like his actual self, where he's just like, I'm just here to talk to you about it. It's not like, kind of energy, which would have been something else, Boring Haas. The events are too small. Everyone would recognize me. Well, yeah, but they're not gonna like beat me up. I don't think I'd be in danger with the CPI crowd. They might like say all the things out loud that all of you have been seeing in your DMs in all caps. There's that, right? I don't think Kaz would accept my offer of the peg off though. I don't know if he's ever gonna do that. If he was a real man, he'd have a peg off with me. That's like, you can't. It's been done time and time again since the early days of Greco-Roman wrestling, in which two men, buff men, gentlemen, would stand before each other completely nude, pour olive oil onto each other's bodies, lather up, and then begin to thrust at one another and wrestle. Yes, that was how disagreements were settled. And that tradition carries on to this day in the peg-off. And yet I do not see these people who claim to be manly men ready to be pegged to completion. We'll see. We'll see. Aiko got Haas the other day. Oh no, Aiko. Did her decibels go up by like 10? Did the gain suddenly go up a whole bunch more?
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free. Just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to conduct many a human sacrifices in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble yet incompetent jesters, trying in vain to bring some levity into your life. To our Lord Trevor R., we give you thanks for this meager plot of land for us to toil away our pathetic existence. To our brave knights, Carl Wauer, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruben Kelly, Brendan, Words Greenwood, Nate, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We salute our mighty heroes off to conquest some bread in some far-off land.